can be seen on the screen now. Before we proceed on to the agenda and the conference schedule, a little about us, who we are and how we operate. So about us, we are 1.21 GWS. We provide platform to build and enhance the productivity quotient of working professionals through experienced module developed and delivered by the industry thought leaders, like we have many of them joining us today. This helps the industry by making their employees more productive in the organization. The vision that we have is transforming thoughts to accelerate success. What we do, we organize one-to-one guest lectures, one-to-one face seminars, one-to-one workshops, consulting services we were into. Now we are on a hold for that. We organize customized conferences. We have a media portal by name One-to-One Insights. We also organize trainings and contests which used to be physical. Now everything has been online now. So these were the geographies we used to cater. Now we have 3 time zones in which we are catering right now: North America, ANZ, which is Melbourne time zone, and IST, which is India time zone. But these are the geographies that we cater to. Also, it's important to mention and thank our platinum sponsor, ESSPL. About ESSPL. ESSPL, a global IT service company servicing supply chain and logistic industry for more than 23 years, delivered visible value to numerous companies in building automation, optimization, and visibility solutions using cutting-edge RPA and cognitive technologies. We have expertise in enhancing process efficiency by blending RPA with machine learning and cognitive technologies like Chatbot, predictive analytics, and computer vision to create a new breed of the smarter digital workforce. They have worked with global companies to help them improve their operational productivity in the areas like warehouse order fulfillment, automated container tracking, and centralized visibility, autonomous EDI monitoring, and logistic workflow automation. These are just to name a few of them. To visit and to know more about them, you can connect with them on these IDs and these locations mentioned on the screen right now. You can take a screenshot if that suits your interest. This is the link of the website where you can get the agenda. I'll browse you through the agenda also. Just a second, give me one more minute before I hand over the platform to the experts. Okay, so this is the conference agenda that we are going to have for today. I'll be posting the link for it on the chat box in case if you want to refer it in future. So we'll start it. We have already started with the overview. We'll have keynote by Rhythm, and then we have the entire lineup until 4 p.m. with Ashutosh Prasad, founder and CEO Koi Reader Technologies, and we end at 4:30 p.m. New York time. So without further delay, it's time to call our keynote speaker, Mr. Rhythm Chakravarti, Head of Solutions, Head of RPA Center of Excellence, ESSPL. May I please have Rhythm on audio and video, please? Rhythm.
Just a second.
Yes. So Rhythm is going to take up a session on create a personalized customer experience and control tower visibility through RPA enabled smart integrations. In the meantime, we have the PPT uploaded from him. A little about Rhythm. Rhythm, we are not able to hear you and see you.
Just a second, I'm just setting up few things.
Yeah, okay. All right, so Rhythm has 21 plus years of experience in design, develop and deliver IT innovations for SCM and logistic industries. I'm sure this is the crisp about him. We'll hear more from him. All right, so we can see you, Rhythm. I would like to confirm you once I can see the presentation.
Yeah, just I'm sharing it now. Let me know if you can see it.
It's starting to share. I think a Facebook chat box is open. Okay, all right. So I can see the presentation, confirming and handing over the platform to you. Over to you, Rhythm, now. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhilasha. Good morning, a very good morning to you all. This is Ritam. I consider myself as a passionate technocrat working in this field for the last 20 plus years now. I am a senior solutions architect and heading the solutions and innovations team in our company and also heading the RPA automations group. So as working in SSPL, I have been privileged to observe from close quarters how technology has been impacting the services industry at large and supply chain logistics industries in particular. And what I have been seeing that the market is moving towards two specialized areas. One, it is the personalization of services, and the other is about centralization of control for the operations. So today, I would like to talk about one of the interesting developments happening in the fields of RPA automation. I'll talk about how RPA, which is traditionally considered as one of the back office automation tools, is turning the tables and getting into the forefront, taking the center stage towards helping in creating centralized command and control systems for the operations team. At the same time, helping in creating and delivering personalized customer experience for the end user, the end consumers. That's the big story that I have been tracking so far, and I would like to share a few of my insights with you today. Um, so without much ado, let's take you forward with this discussion. And at any point of time, if you have any queries, you can post your questions into the chat box. I have my colleagues here who would help you out with the answers. In case there are certain unanswered questions, then I will take them up at towards the end of the session. And in case the time doesn't permit, then you can always connect me offline. I'll share my details as well. Okay. So without any further delay, let me get on to the show. Okay, so, talking about these challenges of the industry. Now, what we are seeing today, that the market is behaving and operating in a totally different way, especially after the impact of the COVID. There has been a widening gap between the supply and the demand forces. Now, while on the supply side, you have the services companies who are smarting from the impact of the initial onslaught of COVID, and because of which they might have downsized their operations or downsized their teams, put on more stringent financial restraints or cost control measures. That's the supply side. Now, on the demand side, what we are seeing that the customers have increased their online transactions by many folds. And one of these studies were saying that in the last 1.5 years, the e-commerce transactions has probably doubled than what it used to be in the pre-COVID era. Right. So the problem that comes out is the dilemma that the these services companies are facing is they have to deal with this huge load, this increasing demand load with a much reduced team size. So definitely there is a problem brewing towards doing more with less. How to deliver the services to this higher increasing load of demand through a smaller team efficiently. That's one part of the problem. Now, the other problem is about customer retention. Now, the problem, the situation is there is too much of competition in the market. If I take logistics and supply chain domain alone, in US, there are close to 13,000 freight forwarders as of today of all different shapes and sizes. The number increases to 14 to 15,000 if it goes to UK region. And if I include Europe, the numbers would be probably close to 30,000 freight forwarders. So there's a huge competition. Now, if you look closely into their services, you will find that most of them are providing almost similar set of core services. Now, the question definitely becomes, what is the differentiator? What is the thing that someone is providing differently to the end users, so that this end customers, so that they remember you, and they give you a repeat business, and ultimately you can retain them. So that's the big question, and especially because now the customers has become very demanding. They are looking towards you to customize your services towards what they require, when they require, and where they require. So they want you to know how they are expecting things, and accordingly adapt to their requirements and provide them the personalized care, the personalized experience. And that is where the retention comes into picture. So now, in one hand, we have the performance issue, the productivity issue of doing more with less, with a smaller team size. On the other hand, we have to customize and personalize our services to retain the customers, right? So while we are talking to the different CTOs and the CXOs, we found that most of them are concurring to the idea that technology adoption is uh, one of the pivotal strategies that might help solve this problem. Now, you might very well ask that technology adoption is there for a long time now. It's nothing new. So what's the difference? Now, what we see, the difference is towards how the technology investments are happening towards the technology. It's not all across the board. It is only happening to very specific technology streams. And to be precise, it is happening towards three major technology streams. One is the optimization solutions. The second is towards the automation solutions, and the third towards the visibility solutions. So as you know, optimization is all about removing your wastage, whereas automation is about getting things done faster, and visibility is about accessing the data at the right time. So what we see that the technologies which can be contextual, which can respond to the local factors, can adapt to the customer requirements, customer needs, and provide the particular intelligence, are the one which are driving the adoption process. And that's the reason why the market is driving the industries towards the adoption of a specialized kind of technologies, what we call the smarter technologies. That's the key takeaway. Okay. Now, so what we are seeing that the industry is grappling with two kind of problems. One is on doing more with less, while the other is to create the personalized experience for the end user to retain them for longer business. Now, if I bring that perspective into automation side, then obviously it becomes amply clear to everybody that automation alone is not enough. We have to have something more. We have to make it intelligent. All right. So let me take an example so that you can connect to it better. Now, let me take an example of our e-commerce company. So what we see in an e-commerce company, for that case, you can go to any company, you will find the similar set of issues. So you see you have multiple systems in that company running, each doing a specific part of the business. Now, but there are data silos. Now, while we are talking to the CTOs, almost 85% of them are confirming that data silos is a big problem in their organization. And we did a quick survey, and we found that close to 59% of them attributing bad customer experience to data silo issues. So certainly data silo is a big problem in the organizations. Now, coming back to the problem that the demonstration that we are talking about, in any e-commerce, a typical workflow would look like this. So you have an order management system probably, which will be taking the user orders and maintaining them. You might have an inventory management system, which will do the order fulfillment activity, allocate the product against the orders. And there may be a transport management system, which will be planning the delivery schedules, and ultimately the product will be shipped to the customer. So that's a typical workflow in an e-commerce company. Now, what we see, there are systems with different systems and each having the data silos. So what we see in real terms is that human operators are engaged to actually bridge those data silos. They actually work in one system, pull up the data, put it into spreadsheets, move it into another system, key in some information there, or go into the third system, key up some more information, and complete the chain of events. So the human operators acts as a bridge or conduit to get around this problem of data silos. This is what it used to happen. Now, with the advent of RPA, this problem has somewhat been addressed by bots assisting the human workers to reduce their manual workload towards automating few of the repetitive tasks that are involved towards moving the information from one system to another. Right. Now, if you look at the bots, now the bots are getting triggered by mainly two different ways. One, it can be triggered through some time-bound scheduler tasks, which keeps on triggering them at a regular interval of time, which we call typically the unattended bots. Or the bots could be triggered through some human activities or events, which we call the attended bot. Now the thing starts getting a little interesting. What if instead of controlling the bots through those trivial time-bound jobs and schedulers, what if they are controlled and triggered by some intelligent software, a software like an artificial intelligence, which can sense when to trigger which business activity and accordingly trigger the bots to carry out that action. For example, it can sense if a shipment is getting delayed, the customer needs to be informed. It can identify which bot can send out the notification activity. Or for example, it can, while communicating with the person, with the customer, it can identify that the person is looking for some tracking information. So it identifies which bot can collect the shipment tracking information and it invokes it, and it in turn goes into the transport management system, collects the information and brings it out and gives it back to the user. So that opens up quite a lot of possibilities, you know. Now, but when we are dealing with artificial intelligence, one of the important problem is it requires a huge amount of data, which it requires to train itself, to train the machine algorithms, ML algorithms, so that it makes proper sense and creates its own context and behaves in the appropriate manner to the scenarios. So the problem becomes where from we should get those data, those huge amounts of data. Now, the thing is, we already have those systems in place in our daily usage. There are systems called control towers, which actually works by integrating across the different systems, which collects these massive information and provides a central visibility to the end user, creates a 360-degree view for the users to see how the business operations are running. Whereas you have the BI system, on the other hand, which is collecting large amount of data across the systems to make post-mortem analysis about what has gone wrong or what is happening and what had happened. So if we can direct those information to artificial intelligence so that it will munch on it and can make sense out of it and can then decide autonomously how to respond to different situations and accordingly trigger the bots, then it opens up a wide range of possibilities and a new horizon, right? Now, where the bots can carry out the activities as instructed, and while they are doing, they can collect the event information, the statuses that are happening within the business operations, and feed them back into these control tower and BI analytics systems. And you see there is a kind of a self-feeding system created, where the bots are carrying out the instructions, doing the operations across the systems, and collecting the information in return and feeding back into these control tower and BI analytics data systems. And these data are getting routed to these artificial intelligence to make sense and become more efficient towards, again, triggering those bots in the right time at the right moment, right? So there is a kind of a self-sustaining system. Of course, I'm not talking about creating a Cyberdyne or Skynet kind of system as we see in the Terminator series, but definitely these kind of systems from the data point of view can become self-sustaining and create what we call the visibility with control. It's just not read-only information to look at. It gives you the levers which you can pull to change the process if something is not happening in the manner it should, right? And since we have an artificial intelligence now, we can integrate a wide range of technologies. For example, a chatbot. A chatbot, as you know, can interpret human conversations, can human language, and can provide those inputs to the artificial intelligence to actually identify what actions to be taken. For example, if someone is looking for a container status, a container tracking status, and provide the reference number, the artificial intelligence can identify which bot can carry out that activity and trigger it. And the bot can go maybe even outside the company and look into a third-party carrier website, scrape the data back, and pull it out and give it back to the user through the chatbot into the devices of choice. That's the customer experience. That's where the intelligence comes in. Now, to me, what is intelligence? Intelligence is that I get what I need even before asking. I will look towards my partners and see if they can know my habits, my way of consumption, and suggest me what I should need. That's the intelligence, that's the value addition I would probably look from my partners who are servicing me. And that is where the personalized customer experience comes into picture. So these systems, these smart systems, can give you that kind of control and customer experience. And at the center of all of it are these RPA bots and the AI intelligence and their interplay. And that is what I summarily call it as cognitive automation. So guys, what we see today, the automation is moving, the automation industry is moving not just on simple automations, not just simple back office automations, but it is moving towards cognitive automation. That's the way forward. So you might have noticed in my last slide that there is a competition going on between the technologies. There is a battle going on between integration technologies versus automation technologies. Now, apparently looking, both of them are actually doing the same thing. They are integrating the systems and consuming the data, taking out the data and consuming it. So naturally the question comes, when to apply which technology? So I thought of sharing few pointers which might help you in deciding that, where the applicability and when to use which kind of technology. So if I talk about system integration is might include APIs, might include EDIs, it might include even the enterprise service buses, ESBs, or integration platform as a service, IPaaS, what we call now, based on the complexity and based on the intensity and extent of the integration. So that's the system integration. And what we see, the most appropriate case of applying the system integration is for the cases where the data volume is high, or the frequency of data change is on the higher side, and the data processing nature is of bulk processing nature. So you have huge amount of data to be transferred between two systems, or the frequency of data transferring is high and they are in bulk batch modes, then system integration is a go-to strategy. But as you know, system integration, we call it a downstream integration, meaning it requires specialized interfaces to be defined, special protocols to be selected. You have to define certain program structures which the two systems can understand, interpret, and communicate. So it requires specialized skills, specialized development skills to implement those kind of systems, which makes it expensive, time-consuming, and relatively complex. So to me, system integration is more a long-term strategy where we where we need high volume transactions or high frequency data movements or happening in a bulk mode kind of processing. System integration would be best fit in those kind of situations. Now, if I go into the robotic side, the RPA side, what we say is if the frequency is low or the volume of transactions are on the lighter side, or the data generation is based on event-driven operations rather than bulk processing operations. So there RPA fits the best. Okay. Now, what we see that, and you may also know that RPA is what we call the upstream integration technology. That means it doesn't require APIs or web services to integrate systems, although they can call them as required, but it's not necessary. So even the legacy systems which doesn't have API compatibilities, it can still be integrated through RPAs. And the RPA technology providers are providing these platforms, making those platforms low codes, so the technology barrier is also low. As a result, the system implementation getting faster, simpler, and relatively less expensive in the longer run. So, so that is the difference. That is the strategy that I typically use. So, if you have event-driven architecture, if you have a lightweight information exchange or less volume data to be moving, then RPA is the best choice. System integration might be an overkill there. But as is said in the architectural world, it's all depends upon the architect, how well he or she blends the technology. It can work as a hybrid solution, or it can be work as any one of these two solutions. It's all depends upon how good the person can blend and create a solution which should be as simple as having a cup of coffee, guys. So that is where the thing is. Ultimately, you are the person who is going to decide which one fits your bill better. But these can be the broad guidelines that you can use to identify which kind of strategy can be used in which scenario. So moving forward, we till now we have talked about the market forces, the kind of problems they have in the industry is facing, the problem of doing more with less, and also the problem of personalizing the experience, adapting the services to create the to maintain the customer retention high and meet the elevated levels of customer satisfaction. So that is the problem. Then we talked about how smart technology adoption is taking the center stage, and we also talked about how automation is moving towards cognitive automation dimensions. So now I would like to give you a big picture of how this architecture pans out. I'd like to show you how the smarter technologies can help fit this big picture and create and give you what we intend. So if you go into any organization, the bedrock of the application structure or the organization would be the business applications that are running. Right, you may have a CRM to manage your customers. You may have an order management system to track your orders. You may have a freight management to plan and manage your shipments. You have warehouse management, transport management, invoicing and billing going on. You have BI analytics to gather the data across and make sense out of it. So many enterprise applications are running in tandem. Now, what we are seeing now, that's a new breed of applications coming. We call it the visibility and control tower systems, which sits on top of it and uses the API and the web services to integrate the data across the systems and create a centralized visibility or centralized control, right? So it uses the what we call the system integration strategy, the technologies to use APIs and web services to actually integrate the systems and give you the value, give you the data and the visibility that is required. And on top of the tier, you have this what I call the information accessibility layer, where the user sits in. So where the operations user are privy to the information that these control systems are providing, they get that information, they share it with the customers either through mails or phone calls as necessary. So this is what is happening today. But there is a set of people who are like me, who are looking for alternatives which can be complementary to the existing conventional systems, or it can be a supplementary solution stack. So we have just talked in the last slide that the applicability of the RPA. So considering that RPA is applicable, so RPA can be one of the other piece of puzzle in the integration, where the bots can act as the medium to carry out the data integration across the systems to execute the business actions as required, and in the process collect the information and feed it back into the control systems that we have, the central systems we have. Now once we have the RPAs, if we can build now a conversational interface, an interface that can talk with the user and creates a unified layer over your existing applications, then you can see there is amazing things can be achieved. Now, being human, conversation or talking comes naturally to us, right? So if we can tap into that idea and allow the customers or the users, it can be operational users, it can be customer users, or it can be even the management users, to use those channels. It can be your devices, it can be any channel, it can be your Facebook Messenger, it can be Teams, it can be WhatsApp, it can be Google Chat, whatever channel you can think of. You can use that and concentrate on what you need rather than learning how you need to access the information. So if you can cut that learning curve out and allow the people to use the channels of their choice and pass on their requirements, their queries, their instructions in the language of their choice, it can be multilingual, then those information can be trapped by the conversational interfaces like chatbots or voice assistants or any other such mediums. Then those information will be trapped and will be passed on to the layer beneath, which is the AI or the NLP layers, which translate those natural language information into what we call intents and identify which business action should be performed to service that intent. And once it identifies which business action, it becomes very easy for them to identify which bot, which RPA bot to be triggered to perform that activity. And then the bot carries out its logic, its activities, and collect the information as required and pass it back to the users through the channel. So you see, there is a parallel technology stack that is coming in and fitting side by side to the conventional systems without any conflict of interest. It's actually making the way the data access more easy and more dynamic. So this is the value these systems can create. These architectures, what I call the command control architecture, can actually help. For example, the robotic process layer is actually helping you to improve your productivity, the concept of doing more with less, while the conversational layers and the AI layer is actually making the things easier for the customers or the users to access and command, and the intelligence is built within the AIs to actually make sense of it and automatically trigger the bots whichever required to do those activities. So I'm not saying that they can replace the conventional system, but they can sit alongside and create additional values that the market is looking towards, right? So moving forward, I guess I'm done most of my talking. Now it's the time to see something in action, because I see many of us in this team are from the technology domain. So for us, seeing is believing. So I thought of creating something which works, which can give you an idea of how these concepts can be applied in real terms to create something working, so that the companies can leverage those ideas in real terms. So I have a small demonstration to show, and what the use case that we're using is a very simple one. Considering there is a fictitious freight forwarding company, let's call it Move It Freight Forwarders, Move It Forwarders, and which has some of their base systems in place. They have a quotation management system, order management system, TMS, carrier booking, and otherwise. And also they have implemented a layer of RPA or bots which can do specific business activities across the systems. And they have put in the AI layer and built a chatbot interface so that the users can communicate with the systems in human natural conversation mode. So they can, for example, ask for a quote, then the chatbot starts a conversation by which it can collect the required information and then pass that to the AI layer. Now the AI layer decides which RPA bot to trigger to carry out that information. It triggers the RPA bot. The RPA bot will then go into the quotation system, searches out the best rates, and return back the available choices to the user. Now once the user selects a choice and requests for booking, the AI again comes into picture. It finds out which bot to trigger to carry forward the delivery order creation process. It triggers that, which goes into the order management, creates the order. Now, once it's done, the AI identifies that once the delivery order is created, it should do some other activity. It should trigger another bot to plan the transport and ultimately book the carrier. Okay, and once it's done, it informs back the customer or the user about the reference numbers to track. Now, once at any point of time, once the user gets the tracking number, they can track it. They can ask for tracking it. Then the RPA bot can, a particular RPA bot will be triggered, which will go to a third-party carrier website, scrape the information out of it, and bring back the information and give it back to the user. All happening without the users actually opening any system by themselves. All through conversation, it is happening in this example. So let me move to the demonstration. Okay. So if you see my screen, so you see that this is typically the Facebook Messenger. Okay, so somebody is just using Facebook Messenger, and they are into Facebook Messenger, and I just start this here. So now someone can search the bot that this Moveit Enterprises has created. So they will simply search that bot and add it to their contact list. There's no need to install anything. It's already, the messenger is there. You don't have to install anything. You simply search and add to your contact and start communicating. So the user will probably select the bot, and the bot will greet the person, and then the user will start communicating, and probably the bot will bring up the options to the users to select from, like the get quote. Now the users says, okay, let me get a quote, and that starts the interactions. So it will pass on the, it will ask for the origin country, it will ask for the destination country and the time when you want to move the shipment, and the user may probably ask submit to the bot to get the answer. Now the bot will submit that to the backend engine where the AI is waiting. It identifies that something, this code management has to be done. You can see that, consider this is a separate system. We have implemented the bot using the Automation Anywhere platform. So the bot has opened up the quotation system in the backend, and it is searching based on the user input information to identify the best rates. It is scraping the information and going to pass it back to the chatbot interface so that the user can see it. Now we are showing side by side, but consider these are two different systems and all happening in different. So you can see the rates are coming down to the users now, and the user might select one option out of it. These all data are fictitious, so there is no relevance to real world. Just for the sake of simplicity, we are using something so they can connect to. So now user selects a particular carrier and a container and requests for a booking. So then it goes back to the AI now. The AI engine finds out the bot which can carry forward the delivery order creation process. So the bot is triggered. Now the bot opens up the order management system and records the order, and probably initiate the trade transport order creation process. So it is searching the particular delivery order which has been created, and it is going to be initiating the transport order. Now, once it is done, the AI understands that this process is over. Now, the next step, it is triggering the next stage of activities to move on. Now, as I have mentioned earlier, that while the bots are doing the activities, it can collect information and feed it back into the central control systems. So here, so the bot has collected the information, it's feedback to the central system. So if somebody searches by certain transactions, it can see the current status of what is happening. For example, here the DO is created. Okay. Now the RPA is moving, the AI is triggering the next set of activities, that now that the delivery order is there, now I have to create the transport order. So it is triggering another bot to open up the transport management system automatically all by itself, filling out the header information, the delivery order information, the documents or the pickup information, all of it, it is filling out. This is a typical RPA flow, so nothing much to explain. So it is all adding up the data as required to create the transport order. So it is filling up the information. So this is all happening in the back end. The user is sitting on his Facebook Messenger for after it has triggered the activities. Now the transport order is created. So the user will be informed that yes, the order has been created and this is your booking reference number. And also the control tower will show that yes, now the TO has been created. So the RPA is working. So now the next stage would be creating the carrier, requesting the carrier booking for the particular transport order. So another bot has been triggered, which is opening up a carrier booking application and creating the carrier booking request. filling up the particular details like port details, the vessel details, the cargo information, the party information. So it's a typical request booking process that normally happens in the logistics industry. So the interesting thing is there is no particular time-based RPA running. It's all been triggered as and when needed by the AI engine in the backend based on the responses and the queries coming from the users. These processes are getting triggered autonomously to carry out the events. It is, of course, as a little simplified version for the demonstration sake, but this works. So now the carrier booking is done. So probably the information will go back to the user about the status, the order booking reference number. So that is it. So user is getting it. So now at any point of time, the customer can track the container and for the movement. So it can then request for tracking the container. So you can say track container. So the system will give in a way to enter the container number. So remember, this is the Facebook Messenger. So the user is nowhere outside the Facebook Messenger. They're all doing through and through with the Facebook Messenger. And then the bot, the RPA bot gets triggered in the backend, which will now open up a third-party carrier website and search the container out and collect and scrape the information about the current status of the container. So it is opening up a MSE tracking website and entering the container number to find out what is the current status. And once it scraped the information, though information will be provided back to the chatbot in the Facebook Messenger about what is the status of the container. See, it's there. So far we have seen that the customer users are working. Now it's not limited to customer users. A driver or an operator can also use it. For example, somebody wants to capture the POD. So a driver can use this bot and enter the reference number of the delivery they are making, and can then the bot provides him the questions like, for example, here it's asking to upload a delivery receipt. So someone can select and upload it from the messenger itself, and the data goes into the system and it's all updated and done. So that is all. So that is the crux of the demonstration, that whatever we have just talked in the previous slides, it can actually be developed and it can actually be replicated in real terms. So the key takeaways, the key value propositions that we see is certainly the personalized on-demand access of information, like zero installation from the customer point of view. They can use the chatbot into any messenger of their choice. The AI engine keeps learning, remembering the choices the user has made, and improvising its options as the usage increases. The other is the smart automation of command and control. So it allows the people to talk to their enterprise application, literally talk to their enterprise systems anywhere, anytime. They can even access it outside the boundary of their enterprises. Of course, the system securities and other things can be worked out, but you can actually access them without opening those systems. And the system can be an auto-feeding system which learns all by itself without any external dependencies. And over the top, this solution sits on top of your existing investments. You don't have to throw away whatever investments you have done. It can still sit on top of it and generate the additional values. And lastly, but not the least, is the visibility. It's not just providing the visibility, it's also giving you the levers to control. The RPAs are not only giving you read-only data, it's a bidirectional flow. It's also giving you levers to control. You can invoke something that will actually get executed and a business workflow will move on. So that's all that I had in my mind to discuss with you today and share with you. It's time to open up a few questions, if the time permits. I'll ask my colleague Debjit, do you have any audience questions so far to you?
None I can see in my chat. Probably someone can ask now.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
thank you, Rhythm, for the presentation. I'm sure that was enlightening and enriching for others. So, Rhythm has opened the session for any question answers. If you have any suggestions, any questions, or any discussion that you want to go ahead with, please unmute yourself or feel free to type out in the chat box and they'll be happy to answer.
it might always happen that it doesn't click right away, but you can always reach me back anytime. Here are my contact details. You can write to me or connect me in the LinkedIn. You can Rhythm.
So Rhythm, would you
Yes,
mind
SPL.
sharing your email ID and LinkedIn ID on the chat box? Probably that will remain in the chat box for the entire duration of the
Right.
conference.
Yes, we can give it that, but here is the also, I'm showing it in the screen also, but I can give it as well. So anytime you think you have any questions, you can do reach me. I will try to answer as quickly as possible. So that is all, and thank you for a patient hearing. Stay safe. Back to you, Abhilasha.
All right. In case we don't have any questions, we thank you for your presentation, Rhythm.
Thank you. Thank you.
And with no questions, we'll move on to our next session on agenda, which is by John Bree, Chief Evangelist and CRO from Supply Wisdom. And we have a session from him on automating risk management with RPA and AI. Also, I'd like to introduce my co-host,